Good afternoon. Again, this is Dr. Danielle Mincey White of Emotional Physical Therapy here on Blog Talk Radio. Excuse me. And I'm broadcasting live from Jacksonville, Florida, as usual. And as you see in the backdrop, I'm again outside. If you haven't noticed by now, I am an outdoors person. Well, this is Monday, December 23rd, 2013. 8 days left in this year. And how has 2013 been for you? Well, the recurring theme for me has been form versus content, especially in these last few weeks of 2013. And that was the title that for lack of a better term, of the newsletter that came out today at 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. Form versus content. And as you know, I've been using A Course in Miracles, Chapter 2, Separation and Atonement. I've been going over the last 4 weeks, and we are on week 5 of the 8-week series, Becoming What You Are Praying For. And the significance of form versus content is that, we have set up in our minds what we believe would constitute our miracles. We look at it from the physical, from the world that we see around us. We look at, validation from that. And this is what is very, very key, because you see, A Course in Miracles tells us that as long as we look at the body for anything other than as a learning aid, as a device for us to learn, then guess what? We are being misdirected. And in those misdirections, we're miscreating, all right? So as we always do with these broadcasts, what I'm going to do is I'm going to start out by us going into a mindful breathing exercise. And what you'll do is you'll inhale. And as you inhale, be very aware of the breath and say to yourself, breathing in, I am aware that I am breathing in. And then as you exhale, breathing out, I am aware that I am breathing out. Again, breathing in, I am aware that I am breathing in. And breathing out, I am aware that I am breathing out. It is so important to us, to our well-being, that we stay in the present moment. Because you see, that's where the whole concept of form versus content, that conflict, you can say? Yeah, the conflict between form and content comes into place. See, form has us either back in the past or ahead in the future, whereas content has us in the here and now. Okay, so again, this is Dr. Danielle Mincey White, and I am broadcasting here from Jacksonville, Florida. And I'm just going to position the camera a little bit here so that we can get started today, okay? Now, what I normally do is I go into the Course in Miracles and go into the miracle principle for this week. And we are going by the week. So the miracle principle for this week is Miracle Principle 5. And it reads, miracles are habits and should be involuntary. They should not be under conscious control. Consciously selected miracles can be misguided. Wow. How appropriate is that to what we're talking about? Extremely correct. Why? Well, because when you think about it, if we are trying to direct our own miracles, determine how they should look, then we're not getting the full experience of God. We're not getting our full experience of ourselves. All right? So, when you look at, what do you think of a miracle? That's the question to ask yourself right now. When we're talking about becoming what we're praying for, typically what we're doing is we have an ideal in our heads. Okay? For example, for so long I prayed for something, okay? For an experience. But I had in my mind how I wanted that experience to look, what form I wanted that experience to come to me in. Well, it didn't. I'm not saying the experience came, and it came in fullness, and it's still there. It is an involuntary miracle. But I can tell you that the form that it came in is where the discomfort came in for me. Because it was like, well, wait a minute. I really wanted this to be a little bit easy. Haven't you had that experience where you want your miracles to come to you easily? And you may be saying, but why should a miracle be hard? A miracle is not hard. As I just read with miracle principle number 5, miracles should be involuntary. However, when we try to direct the miracle, that's where it gets all difficult. And see, what happens is that when we begin to allow the experience, then it causes an awakening within our spirit. And get this, you would think that we would be excited about that awakening, but we're not. No, we're not. Because it causes some discomfort. Yeah, I'm talking, you start seeing images, and when I say seeing images, I'm talking about, internally, okay? So you start feeling emotions, and you start feeling, what is that 4-letter word? Fear. And you scramble in order to get the content that you want, or rather the miracle that you're looking for. You want it to come in the form that would not cause you the discomfort. And that's where we are misguided. All right? This is Dr. Danielle Mincey White of Emotional Physical Therapy here on Blog Talk Radio, and we are on week 5 of the 8-week series, Becoming What You Were Praying For. So, as I was just saying, when we are focused more on the form versus the content, wanting the content in a form for which we would be comfortable, then we are being misguided. All right? So sit back. I'm going to start reading from section 5 in chapter 2, and it's called the ego body illusion. All right? So let's get ready here. If you have a pen and paper handy, go ahead and start taking notes, because this is some good stuff. All right? It starts out with a premise that we've learned biblically since the beginning of time, since we began reading the Bible. And that first sentence says, all things work together for good. There are no exceptions except in the ego's judgment. I'm sorry, you know what? I needed to read that, but that's the wrong chapter. Wow, Dr. Danielle, you are really on top of it today. Again, see? Wanting to put content in a format by which I would be comfortable. So, getting to the right chapter and getting to the right section, let me get started. All right, this is about the function of the miracle worker. Now, I can tell you right now, my ego is saying, you need to just scrap this. You need to just scrap today's episode because you're off. You are caught up in the experience that the content that you have been praying for came in a form that caused you to have a spiritual awakening that has been uncomfortable. It has been uncomfortable. Not uncomfortable in a negative sense as far as, like I got booby trapped or something by the spirit. No, I'm talking about that the uncomfort is like a breaking up. All right. You know how when you go to the dentist, and this is the only way I can describe it. You know how you go to the dentist and you need your teeth cleaned. And if it's been some time, it doesn't even matter. You can go every 6 months, but it still seems like you got a real tough layer of plaque buildup on your teeth. So here you have the dental hygienist, and they just your mouth wide open, and they just all that cracking and carrying on, that's what's going on spiritually. All that cracking, that plaque buildup around the spirit that was hindering my ability to receive the content, my ability to allow the experience of what I've been praying for, allowing my own becoming. Get it? That's where the discomfort is. So regardless of whether or not I get 50,000, hits on this YouTube video, or whether or not I get 50,000 listeners on this episode of Emotional Physical Therapy on Blog Talk Radio, I'm going to proceed. Why? Because it's the process that is most important. The journey is more important than the destination. Because see, the final destination will be when my physical presence is no longer here. But while I am here, it is my duty, it is my responsibility, this really worked in here, didn't it? As this section 5 of chapter 2, the separation and the atonement, is titled, "This is my function as a miracle worker." But the title is the function of a miracle worker, okay? And this is what it says. Before miracle workers are ready to undertake their function in this world, it is essential that they fully understand the fear of release. Remember I was talking about that plaque buildup that the gentle hygienist, also known as the Holy Spirit, is doing on me? Yeah, let's keep going. Otherwise, they may unwittingly foster the belief that release is imprisonment. Yeah, that's what I've been feeling this last week. These last 2. Yeah, that's what I've been feeling, y'all. A belief that is already very prevalent. This misperception arises in turn from the belief that harm can be limited to the body. That is because of the underlying fear that the mind can hurt itself. None of these errors is meaningful because the miscreations of the mind do not really exist. This recognition is a far better protective device than any form of level confusion because it introduces correction at the level of the error. So correction is at the level of where the error took place. I'm going to keep going. It is essential to remember that only the mind can create, and that correction belongs at the thought level. All right, I'm glad I continued. To amplify an earlier statement, spirit is already perfect and therefore does not require correction. I like that. How about you? The body does not exist except as a learning device for the mind. This learning device is not subject to errors of its own because it cannot create. Our bodies cannot create in and of themselves. It takes the mind, the brain, in order for the body to create. It is obvious then that inducing the mind to give up its miscreations is the only application of creative ability that is truly meaningful. Magic is the mindless or the miscreative use of mind. Physical medications are forms of spells, but if you are afraid to use the mind to heal, you should not attempt to do so. So, all this stuff that I've been talking about for the past year, if I was not ready for the correction of my own mind, that medication, then I should not have undertaken this whole venture, this whole, my function, all right? The very fact that you are afraid makes your mind vulnerable to miscreation. You are therefore likely to misunderstand any healing that might occur, and because egocentricity and fear usually occur together, you may be unable to accept the real source, and that's source with a capital S, of the healing. All right. Under these conditions, and I just want to stop right here and say that while I am reading this to you, listeners, viewers, I am taking this in because, see, as a miracle worker, and that's what we all are, anytime that we contribute and fulfill our purpose, we are functioning as miracle workers. So therefore, under these conditions, it is safer for you, for me, to rely temporarily on physical healing devices because you cannot misperceive them as your own creations. As long as your sense, ooh, this one is going to be good. This sentence right here, wait a minute, let me reposition myself. Okay. I need to reposition myself because, let me take a deep breath. Let me get in the present moment. Okay, I'm with it now. As long as your sense of vulnerability persists, you should not attempt to perform miracles. Wow. And this is the Christ speaking here. I have already said that miracles are expressions of miracle-mindedness. And miracle-mindedness means right-mindedness. The right-minded neither exalt nor depreciate the mind of the miracle worker or the miracle receiver. Now, I really, 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 really need to take that in because I have depreciated my own mind. I've looked at, how much I know what emotional physical therapy is all about, and know from an intimate sense because it came from within me, and it is me, and it is my function. But I was in a state of wrong-mindedness versus miracle-mindedness because I depreciated it. I would try to water it down, try to make light of it like, oh, it's just one of my little ideas. And as it says here, in order for me to fulfill my function, I have to be miracle-minded. All right, so however, beginning on, this is paragraph 3, sentence 3. However, as a correction, the miracle need not await the right-mindedness of the receiver. Whew, that's a relief to me. It is a relief. In fact, its purpose, talking about the correction, is to restore him, and I'm going to make this personal, is to restore me to my right mind. It is essential, however, that I, the miracle worker, be in my right mind, however briefly, or I will be unable to reestablish right-mindedness in someone else. In other words, as Jesus said, physician, heal thyself. As if you have a concept of something that you're trying to sell to somebody else, then you need to be a user of it yourself. Don't endorse, this is throughout life. Don't endorse something that you yourself are not using and don't have a testimony about its effectiveness within your own life. That's exactly what that is saying. Paragraph 4. The healer who relies on his own readiness is endangering his understanding. So in other words, it's not essential that I have it completely together. Because as long as I wait on that, I am endangering my understanding. Let me continue. You are perfectly safe as long as you are completely unconcerned about your readiness. Woo, another relief. But maintain a consistent trust in mind. Trust in the Lord with all thy heart and lean not unto thine own understanding. In all thy ways acknowledge him, and he shall direct thy paths. Yeah. If your miracle working inclinations are not functioning properly, it is always because fear has intruded on your right-mindedness and has turned it upside down. All forms of not right-mindedness are the result of refusal to accept the atonement for yourself. And now that I think about it, folks, it's been a few days since I have earnestly said, I accept the atonement for myself, the undoing of fear, and the correction of my mind. So that explains this settling, this being in this space of discomfort. If you accept it, if you do accept it, meaning the atonement for myself, you are in a position to recognize that those who need healing are simply those who have not realized that right-mindedness is healing. The sole responsibility of the miracle worker, my sole responsibility as the miracle worker, is to accept the atonement for myself. Let me repeat that. Your sole responsibility as a miracle worker is to accept the atonement for yourself. This means that you recognize that mind is the only creative level and that its errors are healed by the atonement. Once I accept this, once you accept this, your mind can only heal. By denying your mind any destructive potential and reinstating its purely constructive powers, you place yourself in a position to undo the level confusion of others. The message you then give to them is the truth that their minds are similarly constructive and their miscreations cannot hurt them. My miscreations cannot hurt me. Your miscreations cannot hurt you. By affirming this, you release the mind from over-evaluating its own learning device, meaning the body, and restore the mind to its true position as the learner. It should be emphasized again that the body does not learn any more than it creates. As a learning device, it merely follows the learner, talking about our minds. But if it is falsely endowed with self-initiative, it becomes a serious obstruction to the very learning it should facilitate. Only the mind is capable of illumination. That, lightning, the light. Spirit is already illuminated, and the body in itself is too dense. The mind, however, can bring its illumination to the body by recognizing that it is not the learner and is therefore unamenable to learning. The body is, however, easily brought into alignment with a mind that has learned to look beyond it toward the light. You got that? You getting it? All right, let me continue. Corrective learning always begins. Oh, yes, this is what I was talking about in the beginning. Let me get situated here because this is good. This is good. This is good. This is good. As you see, I move a lot. I do. It's that whole, I'm not depreciating it. I accept the atonement for myself. Okay? Here it goes. Wow. I had to take a breath on this one because this is paragraph 7, the first sentence. Corrective learning always begins with the awakening of spirit and turning away from the belief in physical sight. Remember, form versus content. This often entails fear. I shared that with you already. Because you are afraid of what your spiritual sight will show you. And I'm not laughing at anything other than the experience I've been having with this discomfort. I said before that the Holy Spirit cannot see error and is capable only of looking beyond it to the defense of atonement. There is no doubt that this may produce discomfort. Yet the discomfort is not the final outcome of the perception. When the Holy Spirit is permitted to look upon the defilement of the altar, he also looks immediately toward the atonement. Nothing he perceives can induce fear. Everything that results from spiritual awareness is merely channelized toward correction. Discomfort is aroused only to bring the need for correction into awareness. The fear of healing arises in the end from an unwillingness to accept unequivocally that healing is necessary. You ever think about that? How we try to rationalize, the need to go through something? And when I say go through, I'm not talking about unnecessary stuff. I'm talking about the need to face those fears and see them for the illusions that they are and learn the lesson. To learn the lesson. Let me continue on. What the physical eye sees, the form is not corrective, nor can error be corrected by any device that can be seen physically. That's just like you listening to the radio broadcast. That's just like you watching this YouTube video. Because you can see it and hear it, that does not correct. That does not correct. As long as you believe in what your physical sight tells you, your attempts at correction will be misdirected. I need to hear that again. As long as I believe in what my spiritual sight tells me, my attempts at correction will be misdirected. The real vision is obscured because you cannot endure to see your own defiled altar. But since the altar has been defiled, your state becomes doubly dangerous unless it is perceived. Healing is an ability, that developed after the separation before which it was unnecessary. Like all aspects of the belief in space and time, it is temporary. However, as long as time persists, healing is needed as a means of protection. Wow. This is because healing rests on charity. And charity is a way of perceiving the perfection of another, even if you cannot perceive it in yourself. Most of the loftier concepts of which you are capable now are time dependent. And when we talk about loftier concepts, those are the things that we're talking about. That's what this whole series has been about. Becoming what you're praying for. Those are time concepts. Charity is really a weaker reflection of a much more powerful love encasement that is far beyond any form of charity you can receive as of yet. Charity is essential to right-mindedness in the limited sense in which it can now be attained. Charity is a way of looking at another as if he had already gone far beyond his actual accomplishments in time. And I'm going to skip down to the last two sentences in paragraph 10, and that is, the miracle as an expression of charity can only shorten it. It must be understood, however, that whenever you offer a miracle to another, you are shortening the suffering of both of you. This corrects retroactively as well as progressively. This has been Dr. Danielle Mincey White of Emotional Physical Therapy here on Blog Talk Radio. And thank you for joining me today here on week 5. Join me next week, week 6, same time, 12 o'clock Eastern Standard Time on Blog Talk Radio. Be blessed and enjoy your family and friends during this wonderful holiday season.